Hello, everybody. Mike's MMA Picks here with your MMA Betting Seminar, episode number 5. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. It's something we've put together as a testament of goodwill and solidarity amongst men as we continue week in and week out. So episode number 1, targeting fighters who will fight hard for your money. Episode number 2, developing a winning process. Episode number 3, getting in at the right price, when to place an MMA bet. Episode 4, sharpening your skills as an MMA handicapper, what to look out for. Episode 5, today, we're going to chat a little bit about the importance of identifying stylistic nightmares and how beneficial that can be in the capping process, especially long term. When you find an opportunity to capitalize on, let's talk a little bit about that. So, identifying significant gaps in skill sets between two fighters. Something to look out for. How do you determine this, right? You have to think about how do you draw these conclusions? First option is to look at a fighter's record. That is one way to see where their strengths lie, but the tape does not lie. You want to watch the footage. You want to spend a significant amount of time. If you have amateur footage as well, you could see the raw fighter, what their skill sets are. And now throughout the entirety of their career, have they developed new wrinkles to their game? Did they start out as a wrestler and now are they primarily a striker? Did they start out as a wrestler and now are they a submission specialist? Do they have cardio where they can go for days? Are they someone who falls off of a cliff after the first round? So you have to consider all of these aspects. Do they have a chin, right? Are they an aging fighter who's now washed? I tweeted this out yesterday. How do you determine whether or not a fighter is washed or not? Saw many, many different responses to my tweet. But you want to identify stylistic nightmares. Cardio monsters versus fighters who have shown that they will wilt under just about anything. Nate Landwehr, for instance, we've seen him break Ludovic Klein last time out. He has the ability to do that to some. Julian Erosa, though, ended him fairly quickly in one bout. You have to take time to watch the footage so you understand where a fighter's strengths lie. The gap in skill set is an issue where, let's say, for instance, this weekend we have UFC Columbus coming up. We have a fighter in Sarah McMahon who is known as an elite wrestler. She's taking on a fighter who does not have great takedown defense, in Carol Rosa. Now, when you look a little deeper, how much gas does Sarah McMahon have in the tank? If she's able to put Carol Rosa on her back, you look up and down fights in 2021. One fight that sticks out is a fight between Carla Esparza and Yan Xiaonan. That was a situation where Carla Esparza was able to ground Yan Jianan and the fight there. The get up game of Yan Jianan uh, was not in play. Came back to haunt folks, including myself, in that matchup. You look at fighters such as the matchup that we saw a couple of weeks ago, Kevin Lee taking on Diego Sanchez. Diego Sanchez looked like a fighter who could potentially be washed in many regards. Um, and then we had a fighter in Kevin Lee who was coming off of leaving the UFC, blowing out his ACL, each leg having it surgically repaired, and then worst case scenario took place, and we had a Kevin Lee on one leg who was still able to take care of the aging and washed Diego Sanchez. So stylistic matchup, but then you also have to consider the cost associated with that stylistic nightmare. You may pay a hefty price. I believe Kevin Lee closed as a minus 1,000 plus favorite. So I recommend only getting in when the price makes sense. So you look at many, many different aspects, stylistic nightmares. You have a striker who lacks submission defense, facing a wrestler who has the potential to ground their opponent, who is a submission specialist. That's an opportunity right there. And for folks who play props, look at the viable paths to victory. That's an aspect of the fight game where a lot of folks out there appear to be making some serious coin when they are able to highlight opportunities. Like, for instance, last weekend, a free play that I gave out was Makwan Amirkhani to win inside the distance at plus 425. And you look up and down Mike Grundy's record, and that was a situation where you knew that these fighters were going to probably hit a wall early. And Makwan's incredibly strong the first few minutes of the fight and was able to take care of Grundy in that specific instant. But there are many, many others. Taking a look at fighters' vulnerabilities, their strengths and their vulnerabilities is an important aspect. Also, areas of improvement. Have these fighters shored up any holes in their games? As you watch the progression of their development in the tape, what do you see? Do you see, like, Kamaru Usman, for instance? He's a fighter who his stand-up was an issue at the beginning of his career, and now look at what he's been able to do. Add a jab to his game, and we knew the cardio was there. We knew that he was a wrestler, but he's grown by leaps and bounds from when he entered the UFC. Justin Gaethje, take a look at him. The wrestling pedigree, but he's primarily known as a blood and guts type of fighter who's going to throw caution to the wind. Usually, what I like about Gaethje is he will try to get his opponent into deep water early, get them to rev their engine, and then see who can perform at red line for as long as they can. And he knows that he's able to use his weaponized cardio in the beginning of fights to draw out opponents and make them susceptible to his strengths and their weakness. So he knows his strengths, he knows his weakness. Many different ways we can go about this, but when you're watching the tape, you look for vulnerabilities of the opponent, and then you also look at the other side of the fight. Does this opponent have the ability to capitalize on the other fighter's weakness. Couple of areas to consider there. Many variables, many stylistic nightmares up and down cards. And what you have to do is pick your spots. It's interesting how some handicappers would like to place bets on every fight on the entire card. I think that could potentially be a recipe for disaster. If you're able to do that successfully, good on you. I advise learning through experience and finding your niche, identifying your strengths. That's a huge aspect of becoming successful as an MMA handicapper. I'm going to thank everybody for tuning in to this brief MMA betting seminar where we discussed identifying stylistic nightmares. Remember, my friends, go get what's yours. Third party tracked, ready to get after it week in and week out. Cheers. And let's do this. Let's do this.